Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Adam Morvitz of Point Me. Adam, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Cameron. Super excited to be here.
Of course. So, I'd like to start out with your upbringing. Where did you grow up, and what would you say your childhood was like?
Yeah, so I grew up on Long Island in a suburb about 45 minutes from Manhattan and had a pretty typical childhood. Both my parents worked in the school districts. My mom was a school speech pathologist, my dad, a school psychologist, and I had one sister. Enjoyed all the normal things. Summer was my favorite time. Loved going to the beach, playing outside with friends,
Yeah,
and camp. But yeah, pretty normal childhood. Um, really enjoyed myself.
I love it. What were some of your aspirations growing up as a kid? I know we don't really know at that time, but kind of going through grade school as well. What were some of your interests going through that?
Yeah, so did well in school, but really enjoyed some of the more competitive sports, but also clubs. And so joined a lot of clubs, specifically those that had any kind of business or travel slant to it.
Hmm,
Didn't really know that I loved either of those yet, but there was something interesting about anything that kind of spoke to the business world or the stock market.
yeah.
And so joined many of those clubs.
Where do you think that sparked? That's fascinating, especially kind of like in the grade school years. Were your parents or any family in hospitality, or where did that come from?
They weren't. My parents tell me that I packed a suitcase at like 3 and started walking down the street because I wanted to go out and explore the neighborhood. I don't know. I've always had that exploration bug. I don't think I knew what it meant till after college, but exploring and trying to understand the world better was something that was always interesting to
Yeah.
me. On the business side, it's interesting, like some of my favorite video games when my friends were playing, car racing games or, any of the more like martial arts types games, I was focused on like Roller Coaster Tycoon, where I
Mm,
could look at how much profit I could bring in 1 day theme park admissions,
mm.
or this lemonade stand game that I used to love as well. And so those sparks were there, but I don't think they were fully thought out yet.
Yeah, for sure. Getting into kind of your college years, then I'm curious how this transfers over. I saw you went to Binghamton University. What did you end up studying there, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so Binghamton is a state school in New
Okay.
York. It's about 3 hours from the city, give or take. And it's known for its business program. I wanted to go there because one of my camp counselors went there, and was also really interested in business. We used to talk business together, and he majored in finance and got a great job coming out of school. So always a goal of mine to go there. Obviously, state tuition is fantastic as well.
Yeah,
And did a dual major in finance and management information
mm,
systems.
incredible. With your time there, was there any like monumental projects you worked on, or internships, or did any of those clubs from your grade school years did those transfer into college as well for you?
Yeah. Now that I was business focused, I would say a lot of the internships that I worked on, tried to ensure that they had an entrepreneurial slant to them, even though I wasn't in an entrepreneurship program. Um, we did two consulting projects where we were helping local companies scale and grow, and they were open to any and all ideas. They were primarily operating within what they call the southern tier of New
Mm,
York, and so a smaller business area, and open to expanding both within New York and throughout the U.S. And so, really, we were able to kind of throw darts up against the wall and then present to the executives.
yeah,
I think those were some of my favorite projects at school. A lot of my interest happened outside of school too. As I mentioned, my parents were working in the education system, so the times when we went on vacation were either winter break President's Week or summer. And so summer every year we would go away. I distinctly remember being in California actually and seeing everyone's fascination with salad as opposed to the East Coast at that time,
Mm,
and telling my parents I wanted to open a salad business where it wasn't the normal salad bar that I had seen growing up. It was more so, we will make you a custom salad bowl. And so we're talking in the days before Sweet Green or Just Salad or Chopped,
yeah.
a decade prior. And here I am, like this young kid, telling my parents that I think this could be interesting. I think there's a market for it. And I remember their immediate reaction was like, you can go get salad really cheap almost at any restaurant. Like, who's going to come to a store specifically for salad? And so I remember that. I remember their feedback, and I think it made sense, right? And I remember it pushing me though towards like I actually want to explore what it's like to create a business and what goes into the fundamentals of business creation.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious with that salad thing. Once like Sweet Green and all those others came out, like, did you reflect on that thought? And
Oh my God. Yes, I actually had told a few friends. And so for one of my birthdays where my friends were there and my parents, I had my friends recount my salad idea to my parents about 6 years later. And at this point, Just Salad and Chopped were here in New York. And
yeah.
yeah, there was silence in
Oh
the
my
room.
goodness. It's incredible. Getting into some of your career journey following graduation, though, and prior to your own ventures, you had a kind of an interesting path. I saw you got into some production as well, and kind of directly following school. What did that journey look like for you? What were those first opportunities?
Yeah, I love talking about my career path because I think, like, for anyone who's in school, it doesn't have to be a narrow path. You can really explore, even if you pick a major or you um, go down a road right after graduation, you're always able to move and switch. It just takes some risk taking and some, I would say, um, challenging times, but they've always proved worth it. And so, coming out of school, I took the normal path. I lined up a job in finance at Ernst and Young, EY. Got that while I was still in my senior year at
Mm,
school. Started at EY and was doing a lot of consulting. So I was traveling domestically almost every week. That's really where I learned about the loyalty programs and points and miles, and my fascination for travel outside of the major metropolitan areas really took hold. I was working in offices across the nation. I think I hit 46 of the 50 states while working
wow.
at EY. And so after EY, I had a friend from EY who had interviewed at one of the major pharmaceuticals, and he was like, I know, pharmaceutical doesn't mean anything to you as an industry, but I know you're passionate about consulting and finance, and I know you're passionate about travel. This opportunity is amazing because it's all international travel, and you'll be consulting in their overseas offices.
Wow.
So he actually didn't end up getting a role there. I interviewed, I got the position, and it led to almost 5 years of international travel. And that's really where I
Mm,
honed my points and miles skills, fell in love with the industry and the space, did a great job consulting for the company as well, but
yeah.
really, really loved that travel aspect of it. And started a side hustle. At the time, we were one of the first, what's now referred to as a points and miles award consultancy. So
Yeah.
you, as a customer, would share what points and miles you have, whether it's with a specific airline or credit card company, and we would ensure you got the best value for your points and miles. The typical US consumer gets around 1 penny per point.
Yeah.
Currently at Point Me, we average somewhere between 6 to 12 cents per point.
Wow.
Back then, we were able to average, somewhere between 8 to about 20 cents per point, but really ensuring that the consumer was getting the best value for their points. So started that business as a side hustle. It was called Juicy Miles.
Mhm.
Also started a blog, which started actually as a newsletter at my employer, where I was educating our colleagues on these are the best points and miles deals, these are the best redemptions. And it was a weekly email that went out, and I approached Randy Peterson, who's many consider the godfather of points and miles, and he had a website called Boarding Area, and he allowed me to transition my employee newsletter to a blog.
Wow.
And so at that point in time, um, I truly loved finance, but I had that entrepreneurial bite.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if I'm going to blow my life up and try something new, there's two things I always wanted to do. It was have a successful startup that was travel focused. And also, this is a weird one. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be in charge of programming at a television network. I wanted to pick what shows went on the air, what got canceled,
Yeah.
dig into viewer demographics and ratings. I was obsessed with ratings growing up. And so I said, you know what, if I'm going to go for the travel entrepreneurial startup, let me do television as well. And I emailed NBC HR obsessively. I didn't want to work at any other television network. It had to be NBC. Growing up on Long Island, I made my parents bring me to 30 Rock
Yeah.
once a month to go on the tour. So if I was going to do this, it had to be NBC. I think after about 10 emails, they wrote me back and they said, you can come in. It's not an interview, but if you come in, you have to promise to stop emailing us.
Wow.
Um, and I said, absolutely. And I came in. Um, I was trying to convince them that analyzing financials is the same as analyzing ratings data and demographics data. You're using a set data set to make a decision, um, and
Yeah.
the fundamental skill set required is pretty similar. And I essentially got, cool story, bro. That's not how it works in television. We sense your enthusiasm. We're open to an opportunity, but you have to be an apprentice. And I said, what's an apprentice? And their response was, it's our way of saying you're not 18, but you're going to be an intern. And so, many, many years into my career, I took this apprenticeship unpaid with an apartment in the city and rent that I had to pay.
Wow.
Also that I could fulfill that dream, and it was totally worth it.
Wow.
I think some of the more interesting parts of that were, in order to continue paying rent, I I kept a finance job, and so my NBC job, the first two, they gave me two roles and said, if you
Okay.
can prove yourself, we'll skip you a bunch of levels and get you to where you would have been, would you have started here coming out of school. And so my first two roles, one was at SNL, doing production accounting, and so really leveraging my financial skill set, not exactly what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
And the other, funnily enough, was at an MSNBC show at the time that was called Your Business. And it was a
Mm.
show about small businesses and entrepreneurs. It was really, really geared to what I was interested in. And
Yeah.
they had me writing stories and going out and finding interesting businesses that we could feature on the show. And so I did that while keeping a finance job. NBC was on 49th and 5th. My finance job was on 49th and Park. I'd
Yeah.
start the day in finance at 6 a.m. At lunch, I'd run over to NBC, work, till around lunchtime, then run back, do my finance day, and then finish the
Wow.
day at NBC. So
That's
yeah.
crazy. So, did any of these parties know that you were running both at the time, or how did you operate that? Was there any like a compete?
So they knew that I was. So what I'm leaving out is at the end of both of those days, I'd come home and do Juicy Miles and the blog Point Me to the Plane. I was essentially sleeping about 3.5 hours, but I was living my dream, right? I was making
Yeah,
TV happen. I was making my entrepreneurial dream happen.
it's
To
incredible.
answer your question directly, no. At that point in time, they knew I was working on my side hustle, but they didn't know I had another full-time
Yeah.
job.
Wow.
I just got married actually in March. Um,
Congrats.
and thank you. And had my managers and teams from both of those companies there. And it was the first time that everybody could interact together and kind of laugh about the story. And
That's
it's
hilarious.
amazing to have all those people in the same room
For sure.
now. Yeah.
So, getting back to like your consulting days at Juicy Miles, was that all like manual? So it's if like you would have a client say, "Come on board," would you search those yourself? I'm sure there wasn't like an automation at that time. What was that operation looking like?
Yeah, it was a manual business, and the team searching at first was just me. And so we did have a website. It
Mhm.
had a form where you would fill out, and it had a drop-down menu. So all the airport codes were preloaded.
Mhm.
But you would pick your award program, you'd put in your balances, and then, yeah, I was physically searching. There was no meta search engine at that point.
Yeah.
And, I know we'll get into this, but essentially, that United seat you want, you can get it from United. You can also get it from many, many different programs. And so ensuring that we're looking at the redemption across all those programs to make sure that you're getting the best price point was a manual endeavor.
Yeah.
And so was myself for a few years, and then we built that team to about 63 pre-pandemic,
Mm.
63 consultants on 6 continents, 24/7 operation.
Wow. So
Yeah.
this entire time, so launched around 2011 all the way to kind of right until pre-COVID, was this all still manual? Is it? It might even be manual today, but was this all manual this whole time?
It was manual that whole time. That's really where the idea for Point Me comes from, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do to scale a business like that. The way that we were growing that business was we were looking for, and my co-founder Tiffany had a similar business. Um, we were looking for individuals who were points and miles enthusiasts, who we could have shadow one of our concierge agents, learn the ropes, learn how to interact with the client, and then they would go and execute the searches. That is how we did business all the way through around 2018. In 2017, I started looking for a solution to um, really scale the team.
Yeah.
And so the way to scale was either go continue finding tons and tons of points and miles enthusiasts, or think about a way to service our clients in less time. And so it was taking us 4 to 6 hours to service a client for the reason that you might be going to 35 different websites, calling five other programs, all to ensure that we were getting the best value for our consumer.
Yeah.
And so started reaching out to some of the partners that we had made throughout that time, right? If you think about this from an airline's perspective, we're helping that seat go out filled. These are seats that would otherwise go out unfilled. We're driving conversions into their program. We had proved ourselves a good partner at
Mhm.
that point. And so approached about building what was supposed to be an internal tool that would live on our intranet, which would help our team members um, complete a client itinerary in 10 or 15 minutes rather than 4 to 6 hours.
Mm.
And so that's what was behind the build. And when we went to launch it internally, this is in early 2019, we were
Yeah.
looking at the site and we're like, this is so cool. We should at least throw it up on Juicy Miles and put the beta sticker there and see
Yeah.
if anybody cares. And within 6 days, we had over 6,000 paying subscribers.
Wow.
We had heard from all the major credit card issuers and the VC community. And that was that moment where it was, oh, we actually need to build a consumer facing product.
Yeah.
And that's what Point Me is. Point Me is the consumer facing product.
Mm. That's a good segue. If you can kind of explain that transition from kind of pre-point me and then moving into point me, what problem does that solve for you guys to actually then scale and grow at scale and also solve consumer issues at a timely basis? What does point me come into play?
Yeah, so Point Me is the first ever meta search engine for points and miles. It makes it easy for everyone and anyone to get better value for their points, right? So we're taking a problem that most don't even realize they have, right?
Yeah.
If you ask the average US consumer how many points does it take to go to Europe, They'll tell you 500,000 or 1,000,000 points, how many to go to Hawaii. They'll tell you 300,000 to 400,000. That's just not accurate. And there's an educational and knowledge gap there. And Point Me really educates around that. It's all about the education and the step-by-step enablement for anyone to do better. And by anyone, right, this is an industry that's been dominated by points and miles enthusiasts.
Yeah.
But now you go to Starbucks and you buy a coffee, you earn Delta Sky miles. You go to Shell and fill up your fuel tank, you can earn American Advantage points. You
Yeah.
go to one of your local supermarkets and you can earn United Mileage Plus. And there's no reason that you can't get better use from those points. And so we're talking to everyone now. And the whole way that we're able to do that is we've brought this meta search engine um, into a platform that's super simple, super easy to use, and it's affordable, whether you're looking for a day pass or you're someone who's a dreamer and really wants to plan throughout the year.
Yeah.
We have price plans that speak to you.
Mm, incredible. So, someone like me who has a United Explorer card, for example. So, if you can kind of break it down for a consumer who maybe like me has a United card, like what would that approach be? So, I get on Point Me, I submit my United miles, and what does that look like on the interface for you guys? And because like for me, if I went on there, I would go to united.com, I would see the points with my card, and that's probably it. And I know you guys go past kind of searching through that. So, what would that look like, for example?
Yeah, so the cool thing about Point Me is you can actually sync your loyalty balances across
Mm,
over 200 programs. And so you'll see all of your balances, and then you can actually filter the search results based on those programs where you have points. To answer your question directly,
mhm.
um, United, I'm sure you're aware, has tons of partners that you can redeem your points with, right? They have their Star Alliance partners, they have their non-alliance partners, and then of course you can redeem for a United flight as well. And so
Yep.
we bring that inventory, we're able to display it directly on Point Me. It's even more important for someone, just to give you an example, a similar example, someone who has a Chase Sapphire Preferred or Sapphire Reserve.
Yeah.
They can actually move their Chase points to United. They can move their Chase points to a plethora of different airline and hotel programs. And Point Me is able to recognize, okay, Cameron's got Chase points. Chase points move to these different airlines, and
Mm,
these different airlines partner with these different airlines. And so
interesting.
as a consumer, you don't have to memorize who partners with who, what the transfer ratios are, when the best time to book is, right? Every so often, there are transfer bonuses. And so if you move your points during a specific period of time, you'll get more value for your points. Point Me takes all of that out of the equation for you. We show you the flat price and just make it super easy for you to decide what works best for you. For many, that means I can take my family of four away for the price that I thought I was going to spend on two of us.
Mm,
Or we can take that trip this year, even though I thought we were going to be saving for another 2 or 3
yeah,
years.
for sure. If you can kind of explain your pricing approach when at launch and kind of today as well, what led you to going in the pricing route you did? So if there's a listener out there who might be curious, so you're saving money on your mileage and your points, but we're also paying a fee for the service. So that has to outbalance each other. What was your pricing strategy behind the platform?
Yeah, so it all started with our legacy concierge service. The launch price for that was 125 per passenger. As you added more passengers after two, it did come down, but it was 125 whether you were booking one way or round trip. The
Mhm.
rationale there was, the majority of points redeemers are redeeming for business or first class tickets that would otherwise cost somewhere between $2,000 to $8,000.
Yeah.
And so $125 really not a big step up when you look at the value that you're receiving. Um, in other cases, they're often looking for times when it's super expensive to purchase airfare. So we're talking during the holidays or the summer travel season. So
Yeah.
again, if we can give that incremental savings with their points, We felt that 125 was a fair price point.
Yep.
Prior to launching our automated solution, we increased our concierge rate to 200, which was in line with the market at that point. I think we had 50 plus competitors, and that was around the average price point. Even though we had a full service team,
Mm,
dedicated relationship experts with the airlines and loyalty programs, we still wanted to remain competitive within that sphere.
yep.
When it came to meta search, we really want everyone to understand that they can travel further, they can travel better, they can travel quicker. And so we wanted the price points to reflect that. And so if you're someone who simply is looking for that flight to London, you know the exact date you want to go, it has to be that day, you have no flexibility. Our $5 day pass gives you 24 hours to run as many searches as you want.
Mm,
The big selling point for us is that you're getting accurate results.
yeah.
There is an entire rules engine and database layering that goes behind those search results. And so, it's easy to surface results, um, and it's very easy to cache results, but we're giving you live inventory that's actually bookable. And
Mm,
I think that accuracy point is the most important. We don't want someone transferring their credit card points to a loyalty program and then not being able to obtain the flight.
yeah, for sure. So I think it's incredible how kind of like at this early launch, you talked to 6,000 members at that time. Looking at today, like what do you think is the best marketing for you guys as like a loyalty kind of service? Is it really like SEO driven for people looking to travel, or what do you find that works best?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because it's all been organic thus far. We're
Wow,
super lucky. Um, we are currently hiring for a head of growth and
awesome.
marketing, but we've gotten really lucky. So we've had press hits with all the major business journals, but also Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post. We've had hits on the Today Show and Good Morning America, where we didn't even know we were being covered
Wow.
until somebody sends us the clip. And so thus far, it's been organic. It's hard to compete on SEO because if you think about a lot of the keywords, they're similar to what the bloggers
Yeah.
would be focused on. And so that market's tight. We're really focused more so on the overall travel experience. And I think
Yep.
that's where we'll be able to execute and do well in the space.
Mhm. For sure. Incredible. Well, I like to conclude each episode with this. I think it's a good summary here. If you can share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned or regret along the way, what would you say that would be?
Yeah, I'd say, and I know probably something that many consider just to be um, probably something that many consider just something that they would do anyway, but you'd be surprised. So I would say once we first launched and we had that success the first week,
Hmm.
it was interesting to see how many experts in the entrepreneurial space had reached out to us. And some of them were founders from some really big companies. And
Mm,
so, of course, I took those phone calls, was super excited to be talking to them and with them. And they had a lot of advice. And some of the advice, especially in terms of those early hires, you need to have this person, you need to have this role. Um, didn't actually gel with where I thought the company was at that point um, or the path I wanted to take forward. I never let it influence our path, but I did take the advice and kind of bring on some talent that probably wasn't necessary. And
mm,
it was really easy for me to take a step back after the fact and say, like, if you had just followed what you knew you needed to do to execute and grow. Yes, these people were super successful. They've all had exits, but they weren't in the points and miles space.
yeah,
Many of them were several years earlier. And follow your gut, follow your heart, and you'll likely do better than a lot of the advice that's coming your way.
for sure. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining me today. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Point Me at point.me.